Hello, and welcome to Comfort Legacies Storytime Review. And today we are presenting Miss Lemoy Whilby. Great. Okay. And we'll be talking to Lemoy about her children's book. Let the audience know what the name of your book is, how it came about, anything that you want to share about how you got to this point of becoming an author.
All right. Thank you so much, Faye Michelle, for having me. And thank you to the Comfort Legacy team. I just wanted to share a little with you about me and how I got started on my journey of becoming an author. I think this whole journey started from a child. I had a very vivid imagination. I would just think of things and instantly it would, become a story. But I think last year I was asked to do a devotional at work. And of course, the story writer in me, I had to create a story to bring out the devotional. So I created that story. It was well received. I was asked again by another department to host a devotional, and I decided to go ahead and use my very same story. I also decided that I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. So I did. And, one day I was at home and the thought came to me, why don't you make this story into an actual book? And I'm like, oh my goodness, I could do that. And so that is where the journey began of me wanting to make this idea more tangible into a book.
Okay, that's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about the devotional, what you put into it and how you converted it or your story or mixed your story in with your devotional and why, because that is so important to why it was so well received.
Absolutely. So that devotional that I did, it was about pursuing purpose. And, pursuit of purpose is something that all of us should be doing as human beings. And so for that particular devotional, I wrote the story to highlight how important it was for us not to be afraid to share our talents because so many of us are sitting on our talents because we are fearful or because we did not get that endorsement or that encouragement as a child, and so we were not able to develop more. And I thought it would be very necessary for me to share with individuals why is it important to pursue their purpose, and that story became that channel for me to do so.
That is awesome. I struggled and struggled and struggled with that very thing, purpose, especially when you're in the field where you're saying devotional. So coming from a spiritual background, that's the first thing that you're asked. What is your gift? What is your purpose? What is that specific thing that we are called to do?
Absolutely. And I think this is something that should be even developed from a child. I think, as parent or parents to be, you have an awesome responsibility to help your children identify those gifts and those talents that God has given to them, and also encourage them to utilize those gifts and talents and not minimizing those talents, because sometimes we can think that some talents are better or more they're more spotlight than others. So we want to ensure that every talent or gift that God has given to our children, that we embrace them and we help them to develop those. I think that development of a child should start in the home. So parents have a great responsibility to do that. And I think this book, The Unknown Painter, it really brings that out as to how important it is as parents that you help your children uncover those gifts that God has given to them. None of us are created empty. We are created with gifts.
That is awesome and amazing. My daughter and I was just talking about that. When we were growing up, we had a few choices. You wanted to be a doctor, a nurse, a fireman, a police officer. There's a few things that were like top key, a lawyer that you could be. If you didn't fit into those categories, then it didn't work for you very well. And now we have so many opportunities and being creative in so many different areas that people have become successful in. As children know what they want now when there's so much out there for them to aspire to be, when we had limited choices and we had no clue, but
Mhm.
they know exactly what they want. My takeaway from that is, yes, you're absolutely right in the fact that parents should nurture what it is that the child is feeling passionate about.
I think another thing that parents have to be very careful of is projection. Maybe I wanted to be a doctor, I didn't met that expectation, and so I want to live out that desire or that dream that I have in my child. And so it's very unfair to that child. They have not been given the opportunity to identify who they are. They have not given that chance to develop their why. Why was I created? What did God give to me? And I do believe that wherever or whatever path that your child is journeying along, as a parent, you should support them. And you're absolutely right. Even lawyers and doctors these days, everybody's trying to find a side hustle. They need to do something on the side. And I am saying, if you're creative, embrace it. If you're a painter, embrace it. Embrace whatever gift that God has placed in you. There is a place for you in the world. And I think sometimes we become confused. Okay, that person may be doing it, but there's no one like you. It's only gonna be one Faye Michelle. So own what God gave to you and do it to the best of your ability. And I think that these principles ought to be developed from a child. And so by the time you become another adult, you're actually you own what you possess. And so it becomes very hard for you to copy or for you not to walk in your blueprint.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, that reminds me of the book that I created here. It's called Singing for Prunes. I had to just stick to my guns and say, no, I want this book. It's Singing for Prunes, Jesus Sweeter Than Candy. And the reason why that story came about, I said, all of those elements made me who I am today. But for me, when I'm doing a series of books, I want to get out my story. And sometimes they say, well, that story's never been done before. And maybe you're just that person to have to bring that out. Our stories are legacy stories about me growing up as a child, and it's relating to my grandson. And if I do nothing else, it's a legacy that I am leaving for them and my grandchildren. If it never sells, it'll be their story. So I like to lead with love, lineage, legacy, and literacy, and I think that that's so important and impactful because that's what we pass on. And that's what we struggled with. They used to say it took a village to raise a child. We've kind of moved away from that a little bit because of all of the dangers that are associated with everybody,
Mhm.
taking care of your child. But therefore, I think that we have a greater responsibility to nurture, like you said, our children and find out what it is that moves them and their passions. And it's now our responsibility, not necessarily the school, your teacher, or a coach or something like that. It's
Mhm.
our responsibility to get to know our children and support their passions and dreams and let them fulfill them,
Mhm.
and like you said, not just using projection. I was the opposite. I always wanted to be a singer. Can't sing a lick now, right? But my son, he wanted to be a rapper, and I never agreed with it because I thought, mm, no, I don't want you to go down that road. I want you to go to college, get a formal degree, and be in a secure situation, right? But I knew that that was wrong. So I backed off and told him we will barter. You can pursue your rapping, and you will also pursue college. So my husband calls him the rapper with a degree. And that was our barter. I didn't want to push him into that area of the entertainment area without having support. And I believe that education is a support. I don't think that we should ever forget that as African Americans, as any child of color. We need our education no matter what, first and foremost.
Yeah, education is definitely a key factor in perfecting your art, because you may have a gift, but that gift needs to be developed. So some gifts,
Yes.
you want to go back to school. For example, I know that I have the gift of counseling, but for me to be a counselor and for people to actually come to me, I need to go to school. I need to get my degree. I need to get my master's. So I do believe in
Yes.
education. So you perfect that which you are called to do. I think that's important. And another thing that you mentioned that I think is key, as we write, that our writing reflects our story. And as I thought about my book, the unknown painter, it
Yes.
speaks to the journey of a young man who had a love and a passion for painting, but he never felt as though, his painting was good enough or anybody would want to see his painting. And he hid his painting, but years later, they
Ah,
were uncovered and they were placed in the Royal Museum. And it became a spectacle for the world to see. Everyone was in awe of such beauty. And it just, reminds me of my very own story, that whilst I had encouragement along the way growing up, I had so many other obstacles that could have prevented me from, moving forward or pushing forward, especially, financial constraint coming from a single parent family. But having perseverance, I was able to push past that obscurity and not being an unknown painter. Here am I having this discussion with you today. And so it is very important that, we push and we teach our kids how to push past their obstacles, how to believe in themselves, how to cheer for themselves. Sometimes you will have no one cheering for you.
oh,
And you
yes.
have to have that intrinsic motivation that comes what may, I'm going to cheer for myself. And so they're never too early. I remember some years ago seeing a video on YouTube where this mom, African American mom, she would be giving her sons daily affirmations, going to school. And he was like about two to three. And he was declaring the things that he were. And I'm saying, this is so powerful. If our kids can be comfortable in their identity, then they will be able to be anything that they want to
Yes.
be. And you mentioned about your son and the rapping. And as you were talking, the only thing that come to me is a scripture that speaks that our gifts will make room for us and take us before great men, before great women. So let's just embrace those things that God has given to our kids.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what happened. He was able to perform in front of some legends, of the past, Sir Mix-a-Lot, some other people, I don't know, all of the groups and whatnot. But for that, I'm always so happy for him because it didn't take a lot. He was able to do the music, produce the music, write the music, and that was enough for him to get it out of him. Like I said about the book, if I just wrote the book, how I wanted it and without any reservation of who it was trying to reach, what audience and whatnot, I had to get the story out.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much how it worked for him with his music. And the gift did make room for him, and that was enough for him. He went on and used his education. He, got a job where he went into the military. He got a job where he's helping other veterans like himself. And so he's very, very much content. Like you said in your story, that's an awesome story. I love it already.
Mm-hmm.
With singing for Prunes, this story is basically about meeting a elderly woman who taught me 3 songs. Yes, Jesus loves me. This little light of mine, and he's got the whole world in his hand. And those 3 songs was the thing that I kept in my heart all of the years until I was able to get to know. So you never know who's going to plant seeds, water the seeds, and get the increase. And that's what this story meant to me. And that's what I wanted my grandchild and children to get from this story. Because when I did go and join a church, I remember the pastor saying, "Do you know any songs? Well, besides being out and partying or secular music," he says, "Do you know any songs?" And I said, "Look, if it's not Yes, Jesus Loved Me, This Little Light of Mine, and he's got the whole world in his song, count me out. I do not know it." So, and and so he's like, "Wow, like where have you been all of this time?" Like I'm like in the club, so don't judge me here. But that's why this story was important to me and why it had to come out the way that I wanted it to come out. And I think that being an artist, and the reason why I want to have this platform for us, is to give us a place that we can share, that we can grow, and that we can help others and do exactly like you said, to reach out, teaching people to pursue, to push on. When I was growing up, I believed that an author was just like untouchable. I was like, "They're an author. Like, how in the world do you do that?" You knew it had to come from within you. You can go to school to train to be a doctor. You can go to school to be a teacher, a lawyer, or whatever. But to be an author, to me, I thought, wow, that's really something. You have to really pull that from within. You have to create from within. And I always thought that it was really special, something that was very difficult. And beyond your story, then you have to get the story to someone to agree to like it or enjoy it. And then I was like, well, that was a discouraging part right there, is to feel confident enough that whatever you have, someone else will take and appreciate. Because we are not always in control over the success of such things. I don't know if you remember the Waltons way back when, and they used to say, "Good night, John Boy. Good night, Mary Ellen. Good night." And it was like a family of 6 children, mother and father lived on the farm, and the eldest son was an aspiring artist, and he would always be sending in his manuscripts, and he'd get denied, and then and I don't think it ever. I think the whole purpose of the show was for him to be denied after, and he was a great artist, right? But the show was about him being an author, and it actually one day finally made it, and that's what the purpose of the show was about. The show was him and his family growing up, and he actually made it as an author. But and I think about those times when he was sending in those manuscripts all the time and getting denied, but eventually it turned into a television show. And so I always thought of authors as being this really great, having this really great impact on the world, very difficult to achieve levels of accomplishment. But now with this new platform of KDP and self-publishing, it's open and available to many, aspiring authors. I'm grateful for the platform. How do you publish your books?
Well, it's funny that you said that because honestly, I did not know a lot about the self-publishing. I was like that person that you mentioned on the Waltons. Like I sent my manuscript to maybe I went too big to a couple big names, and some of them I remember one saying the wait list is like a year and a half, and I'm like, no, no, there gotta be something else. And you have to be confident in what you have, and you have to be confident with the no's that you get as well. And the no's does not necessarily mean that anything is wrong with what you possess, but maybe that's not the channel that you should
Hmm.
be taking to getting your dreams realized. So I did have that, and so I decided that, I need my book to be published. It is, passion and purpose. It could allow you to have some sleepless nights. And so
Right.
it was on my heart that you need to get this book done. And so I went with a smaller publishing house, a Christian publishing house out there in Winnipeg. And it has been a wonderful, experience working with them and having them journeying along with me. But along the way, of course, I get to learn more about the self-publishing, which I think it has its benefits. Um, as you would go with a regular publisher, but definitely I know what I'm doing the next time around, which I'm going to be taking.
So how did you come up with the publisher that you ended up with?
So I started researching Christian publishing companies. I even connected with a few in the States. Um, and I settled with this one in Canada. I really like the interaction that I had with them when I first, spoke with them. I felt as though I would be supported, and I was supported along the way because I did not know it was so much that goes into, coming up with your illustration and,
Yeah.
back and forth. They really, yeah, were willing to accommodate me and the changes that I want to make, because you have this picture in your mind, and that is the picture you want to see unfold. And so it could be frustrating if you're not seeing that, but they were willing to work with me, and I think that that's a positive. So a word of thought for anybody out there who is thinking about writing a book, start thinking about your illustration. What is it? How do you envision your story being unfolded in form of illustration? I think that will help as well. But I must say it was not a painful experience for me. Now that the book is out, I am trusting the Lord that He's going to make a way. And even as we're speaking, this is making a way for promotion. So promotion, getting the material out is another big piece. And one of the things that I find helpful is to, get connected with people who are like-minded, who are doing the same things. Maybe they have some strategies that you could learn from. And this is how we met. We met in that group. So I think, each of us coming together to support whatever this person is doing, together we could all get there. We could all get piece of the pie. But at the end of the day, for me, writing, it is a passion. I know it is a gift that God has given to me, and I want to use it to empower the body of Christ. I want that black boy, that white boy to look at this book and say, I don't have to be an unknown painter. God created me in his image and his own likeness. He took time to create me, and what I carry is special. And what I carry, there's a place for it in the world. And so that is what I want kids, my kids, eventually, when I do have kids, I want them to feel assured that they're complete in who God has created them to be. And so they can be free to live, they can be free to soar and to be and to become. And so I am really excited about what the future looks like.
Wow, it sounds like it, and it sounds like such a journey, a pleasurable journey.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. I wanted to ask you about your illustrations since you were speaking about illustrations. Did the publishing company have their own illustrator, or did you have to go and find your own illustrator?
They have their own illustrator.
Oh, okay, absolutely. So you just had to tell them your vision, and then they work with you on that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you said that you act, when you said that you approached other agencies, what was that like? How did you go about doing that?
So I basically so I connected with a few literary agencies in Canada here in Toronto, and they told you the channels as to how you should go ahead and submitted your manuscript. But some of the bigger names in publishing, like it's over a year to 2 years waiting list for you to even get a call. And so I thought that, it doesn't worth it. It is okay if you go with a small scale with a smaller publishing house. So I decided to go that route. Yeah, but sometimes when you see the nose, yes, it could be a punch.
So did that mean that when you're self-publishing, I mean, when you go with the traditional type publishing, people have speak to a little bit about how that works. Do you pay them? Do they pay you? Do you barter? How does that work?
So I think that's what happens if you're going with one of those bigger publishing houses. But for me, I went with a publisher, a smaller publisher, and so they have established a price as to what is this going to cost me in terms of illustration, in terms of putting it together. So yes, and in terms of printing. So I think it's different. I don't know much about with the bigger publishing company, but I know that yes, you do get some payment if they choose your manuscript. But if you're using a smaller publishing house, then you're coming up with the cost. They're just facilitating you and providing you with a service.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to point out to our viewers is that there are different ways to have your manuscripts published.
Mhm.
And there's, you can choose the path that you want to go down. If you write something, you can seal it, have it copywritten, sent to a larger publishing house, wait for them to contact you. And if they like you, then they'll say, hey, perhaps can we buy your story? We'll put you on a contract, send you XYZ dollars, and then it belongs to us. We will market and do everything for it. It now, and maybe you will keep the movie rights. That's the same thing that would happen with Harry Potter. I was
Yeah.
just looking over Jade. They kind of took her story on and paid her out, but she gave them complete control over the story, but she had all movie rights. So that's one aspect. The other is, to find a smaller publishing. Perhaps they'll work with you, you pay them, they'll put it all together for you. It's like they're binding it, putting your story together, getting it out of your head and into print and into a book that you can then self market pretty
Mhm.
much. They will
Mhm.
publish it for you and do all the formalities in that space. The third way is to self-publish it yourself. You do everything, the manuscripting, you find the platform to put it on, be it Kindle, Lulu, send it to Barnes and Noble or whatever, but you do all of the legwork yourself. And you find your own illustrators, you find your own formatters, and so those are three different ways that I know of how to get your manuscript.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and just to add to that, even with the smaller publishing houses, if you have that budget, they could also take on the marketing piece for you. But if you don't have that budget, be prepared to do the legwork for yourself.
Yes, that's good to know. That is
Mhm.
really good to know. So that's pretty much where I wanted to go. Is there anything else, Lemoy, that you might want to add? and to convey to the audience, especially aspiring authors and illustrators or anyone that wants to get in any aspect of the book writing business.
Mm-hmm. So, to fellow aspiring artists or authors, I want you to just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Don't think about all the obstacles, because sometimes if we overthink, or
Mm,
think becomes weak, and we decide not to pursue. And also to just be careful as to who you go to for advice, because
mm,
sometimes seed of discouragement can prevent you from maximizing your potential. And if God has placed a passion or a desire in your heart, I do believe that you have the capacity to do what is it that He has called you to do. So start writing. Have a notepad and a pen at your bedside. And for me, you're sleeping and a thought comes to you, jump up, write it down, just write. You may not see the way, you may not have the resources now, but keep writing, and in due season, in due time, God will provide, and He will make a way for you to make that dream of yours a reality. And if I had a final word for parents, I want you to constantly remind your children that they're special. Speak positive words over their lives, even when they upset you. Make sure that you're speaking positive words over their lives and embrace them. And if there are any little ones who are watching, I want you to know that you are special. I want you to be all that God has called you to be, and just be you. You are beautiful just as you are. You're talented just as you are. So just be you.
amen. Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And I don't think there's nothing else left to be said. So I thank you, Lemoy, so much for being our guest. Can be that platform that people can perhaps reach out to and get questions and get their stories out, you know, and because it's nothing like being pregnant with something. You want to give birth to it, you can't stop, and sometimes you just need someone to take you by the hand and lead you to where you need to go. Oftentimes we hear it. We hear somebody say, "Oh, it's easy. You can do it. You can do it." But I want to be that platform that will say, okay, come here. Let me show you how to get started. Let me show you how this works. And so if there's any questions, please feel free to um, ask, send in your questions so that we can get an answer for you. And Lemoy will definitely want to have you back. And we'll talk about some other things that you've learned because you do other things. You're a social worker.
Yeah, I'm a social worker and life coach. I have a platform called Singles Pursuing Purpose. So I support singles. Yeah, I'm doing a lot in my world. I would love to come back as well, and to share in whatever capacity that looks like.
I would love, love, love to talk about singles pursuing their purpose.
Yes,
I'm not
yes,
single, but I think I have some words.
yeah.
So,
You
yes, I would love to talk about that. And maybe
yeah.
you're going to do a book on that.
Oh, one day for sure. You know what I say, Singles Pursuing Purpose. It's a platform that I have, and every month I host monthly discussions. And you know what, married folks, they're coming. They need to pursue their purpose too. Last month we talked about identifying your why and owning it. So, why were you created? Do you know why? Are you
Mhm.
owning it? Are you living it? So, yes. So every month I do a free um, forum, and I invite guest presenters to come and to share, or I share as well. So yeah, I do that coaching, counseling. Yeah, so I do that.
Ah, that is awesome.
Mhm.
Well, I'm hoping that we can get on that platform and have you discuss that. And so very blessed to have you here. And I thank you so much for being a part of the Comfort Legacies book review. And we will chat again. Thank you all
Thank you.
and have a good evening.